We're live. Okay, welcome. Today is April 1st, and this is the Senate Committee on Institutions and IT. And today we're going to be speaking with Vermont fire personnel. We're going to be talking about specifically rural fire protection. And then we're also going to talk about H50, which is about state buildings and lands. So before we get started, we'll introduce ourselves. I'm Wendy Harrison. I'm the chair of this committee, and I represent the Wyndham District.
Senator Russ Ingalls, Essex District, no fooling.
Yeah, I know it is April.
Senator Joe Major, Windsor District.
For real?
Windsor?
I'm also Senator Major.
I see the result.
Yes, Penny.
Senator Douglas Orleans District.
Okay, so
I'm Troy Dare. I'm the program manager for the Rural Fire Protection Program.
terrific.
I'm Scott Moore. I'm the legislative finance manager from the Joint Fiscal Office.
And you too, are you?
We're students from BFA Fairfax. My name is Isaiah Erno. I'm a senior at Bellows Free Academy Fairfax.
My name is Reagan Baumeister. I'm also a senior at BFA Fairfax.
Thank you for being with us.
I'm Mike Durocher, the executive director for the Division of Fire Safety.
And I'm Jim Abrachi, the outgoing executive director of the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts.
Wonderful.
I
Thank
live
you.
in Waitsfield.
Terrific. Well, thank you everyone for being here. And so we'll hear first from Troy Dare. You're at the
Thank you and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Troy Dare, and I've been the engineering technician for the Rural Fire Protection Program, formerly the Dry Hydrant Grant Program, for 26 years. And I've been the program manager for almost 12 years under the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts. Over the years, my role has increased from simple dry hydrant design and installation to more complicated systems, sub-grant management, project coordination, permitting assistance, parts and sales management, and fund seeking. I work directly with fire chiefs or other delegated fire department reps, town administrators, and local emergency management folks. I also help to keep the Vermont Enhanced 911 Rural Fire Protection data layer up to date by submitting location and attribute data of newly installed water supplies and periodically auditing the current layer for updates and corrections. The auditing process consists of town by town review to make sure water supply systems are correctly located and have up-to-date attribute data such as thread size, type, flow rate, water source, access restrictions, etc. The mission of the Vermont Rural Fire Protection Task Force is to improve the safety and welfare of Vermont communities by assisting local fire departments in reducing the risk of injury, loss of life, and damage to property and natural resources. The program is overseen by the Vermont Rural Fire Protection Task Force. The role of the task force in general is general guidance, review and approval of grants, and to keep us connected to the needs of Vermont communities and natural resources. Task force members include Tom McClay, the chairman, who's recently retired. Some of you may have heard that name before, from Marshfield Volunteer Fire Department. The current chair is Bill Sandborg from the town of Maidstone. From Enhanced 911 is Tyler Hermanson. From the Cabot Fire Department, you all may have heard of Walter Skip Bothfeld Jr. from Cabot. Mike Grenia from the Vermont Division of Fire Safety, Mike DeRozier shop. Dan Dillner from Vermont Forest Parks and Recreation. Currently, the program covers a wide variety of rural fire protection projects or systems. The most common is a typical dry hydrant, which is this schematic here you'll see on the left. For those new to the concept of a rural fire protection system, you can think of a dry hydrant as a big straw. The term dry hydrant is an oxymoron, but it just means that the pipe system is dry from the static water level up. That's why it's called a dry hydrant. Excuse me, but it means that the pipe system is dry from the static water level up and must be primed meaning sucking or drafting the air out of the pipe with a primer on the truck, and then which pulls water to the main pump for delivery to the fire scene, or awaiting tanker shuttles for shuttling. Here's an example of a typical dry hydrant. This one is this one in the top, in the middle there. You'll see that has a culvert around it with concrete that's insulated so it doesn't freeze. Here's another example from Mount Holly in Lake Nineveh. You can see how long and complicated these installations can get. That one was over 100 feet long, took many people to install. And the bottom right picture is a flow test in Corinth from a tributary of the Waits River. The primary service area for a rural fire protection system is 1,000 feet in any direction. This means depending on the amount of hose the fire company carries, they can potentially supply water directly to the fire by a supply hose. The secondary service area of a rural fire protection system is 1.5 miles in any direction. If there is a fire within this distance or beyond, the fire company and mutual aid would shuttle water to the fire scene via tanker relay. Ideally, we'd like to have a rural fire protection system every 3 road miles.
Do you like questions? Are you okay with questions?
Sure, questions. I just have yeah, sure.
Center
Anytime.
point.
Sure.
So you said every 3 road miles.
Yeah.
What is it currently? If you had said yes,
Geez.
you know it's not 3.
It really varies. It
Okay.
depends. You know, obviously you can't have a system without a water source.
Yeah,
So it's really,
yeah.
you got to have a pond or a stream or some kind of water source to tap into every 3 road miles. If you don't, then you can't put a system. But so you can have them actually put into villages to help supplement an old or inadequate municipal system. You know, some of the older systems are tied into drinking water in the villages and things like that. I've had many towns and villages put dry hydrants in their villages to help supplement that system. Some, it really depends on the fire load. Some systems we put in 2 hydrants in 1 large pond because the needed fire flow is above what 1 hydrant will supply. For example, we design systems to flow 1,000 gallons a minute. If you have a major fire load, hotels, SAP, things like that, where the needed fire flow is in more than 1,000 gallons a minute, then you may have to put 2 hydrants in that 1 water source to meet that needed fire flow.
So what if we're a very rural state. What if you don't have a water source within a significant amount of miles?
Then the water needs to be shuttled from the nearest water source, which then cuts the amount of water that can be delivered on the fire scene. So the delivery of the water suffers the further you have the water source. So for example, if the houses are right nearby these ones, we could most likely deliver that 1,000 gallon minute plus right to the fire scene. But if you get outside of that 1,000 feet, then the flow rate drops to say 500 gallons a minute that you can actually deliver, because you have to shuttle the water and deliver it to the fire scene. It affects the efficiency of the water delivery.
Okay. Thank you.
That's your question. Okay. Let's see. As we've covered the state with the typical dry hydrant, we're installing more and more pressurized, or commonly known as wet hydrants, around the state. For pressurized or wet hydrants, the water is above the access point and requires different components to manage the water, such as municipal hydrants, gate valves, anti-seep collars, are significantly more expensive to install than a typical dry hydrant. So what you're seeing here, there's the water, obviously normal water level. Intakes are very similar, but now we need the components to manage that water that now wants to flow towards you under pressure. The finished product is actually better in some ways because you have a static water flow, which you just open the hydrant, a certain amount of water is going to flow towards you. And then when you put a truck onto it and start pumping, it's just the flow rate is better for the, added expense, but the actual system itself is a little better in performing. And here's some pictures of the components. Here's a Heartland Fire Department who put one in a couple of years ago from a private pond. There's a picture of the gate valve, and here's what you're not seeing under the ground is there's the stone where the water drain. It functions very similar to a municipal water system. It's just not under all that pressure. It depends. If the pond is up high, then you get more pressure from it. But these are put in rural areas where the water is higher than the spigot.
That is very interesting. So do you need a municipal system nearby to make a pressurized
No.
wet hydrant?
This is good. This is where you don't have a municipal water system
Okay.
or a scenario where the pond is lower than where you would access it. You know, in Vermont, there's a lot of these rolling hills we have, and there's a lot
Right.
of ponds and streams that are, excuse me, not so much streams, but ponds that are up in the higher elevations where, you know, just the contours and things where you can access it. We need a municipal hydrant to, there's a few more pictures in that report. of-
That's interesting. So is the funding that you're asking for, does it include the pressurized?
Yes, ma'am.
wet hydrant?
Yep, and many other
Okay.
things, and I'm gonna get to that
Okay.
here on the next slide. Any more questions on this slide, Rob? So, excuse me, yeah, right here, let me finish this, actually, the last slide. Due to more recent disasters, natural disasters, drought, wildfires, flooding, and other impacts of climate change, we've had an increase in repair and replacement grants. Okay, let me just summarize that. So we have grants for new systems. We have grants for repair and replacement. We have money for upgrades, meaning that if you have a town or fire district has a bunch of the old heads, 4.5, 5-inch thread on them, which is actually substandard nowadays, everything should be 6-inch.
Mm.
We would actually help the towns to change those hydrant heads out, give them a grant to upgrade. And we also give them discounts on the parts themselves, hydrant heads and things like that. So that's another service we provide is parts at a discount to the fire service in Vermont. And also I found in the past handful of years, a company out of Dadeville, Alabama that makes the hydrant parts that we sell. So made in America, which I know is good. And I love calling him on the phone. He's got a real thick southern drawl. So when I call, hi, Troy, how you doing today? I love calling him on the phone just to talk about it.
He probably thinks you have it.
Yeah, that's true. You know, we drink beers up here and everything, but, and he's very, very intelligent, very, very skilled. He builds things for me, things like that. So it's a very good fund. And then let me finish that. Increase in requests for technical advice. Even if the fire department or town is not accessing our funds, if they've accessed FEMA funding to repair and replace, I still give technical advice to those fire departments, even if they're not asking for funding funds.
So just another question.
Sure.
So those hydrants, I don't see a pump, so it's just gravity?
That's
That-
The pump is in the fire truck.
Right, no, but to
they are gravity.
pressurize
So there's
the
two,
hydrant,
yes, they're pressurized, so the water's higher.
right, okay, so it's gravity that's doing it.
That's the static or gravity fed I was talking about before. There's a certain amount of water will just flow out of them once you open them
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
But then when you when you hook a truck to it, start pumping water out, then you're actually creating a vacuum as
Yeah.
well. So let's say, for example, this static flow for this hydrant could be a couple hundred gallons a minute, 200 gallons a minute, will just flow out of it when you open it up. Then when you hook a fire truck to it, though, they start pumping water out. Then there's a draft that happens. So you can get 1,000 to 1,500 gallons a minute out of a system like this, pumping it flow rate. So that's the two flow rates I was talking
Okay.
about.
okay,
The advantage to that, just to speak to that. So let's say, for example, you had a limited amount of pumper trucks or shuttle and relay.
Yeah.
Somebody could set up a porta tank. You could just leave somebody there managing the valve and you could fill that porta tank without having a truck.
cool.
So like I said, they're more expensive. You can spend $2,500 for one of those hydrants new, $1,500 for a gate valve. You're talking $4,000 just for those two parts. So they're significantly more expensive. You're in the $10,000 to $15,000 range for these types of projects rather than the 8 to 10 for a regular dry hydrant. It almost doubles the cost to install these. A little more to it, the install and stuff like that
Right.
too.
So then you probably want one of those at particular areas where there was just something that you needed to protect.
In
But
general,
a building or something that you needed to protect.
right. It increases the flow rate and the functionality is a little bit different. Now,
Okay,
you can see that there's a gate valve up near the pond. You can put it there or you can put it down by the hydrant.
mhm,
Most people opt to put the gate valve up by the pond because if you have something happen, say the pipe breaks, or you need to work on the hydrant. I require the gate valve anyway as a backup shut off. But this actually allows you to work on more of the system if you put the gate valve up by the pond. It's also used as an installation tool, for example, if you can't drain the pond, you could use the gate valve to shut the water off. And then work in a dry, whoops, sorry, sir, working the rest of the way. I tend to talk with my hands. It's the dare in me. So it is a more expensive system, but And that's why we've actually increased our grants over the years, because we're getting more into these type of systems or helping to clean out ponds, to repair fire ponds without getting into the weeds there on the people, but I tend to ramble at times. Let me reel it back for you. So a system that we've recently adapted and developed from southern states is the bridge mounted dry hydrant. These consist of one pipe with a fire connection at the top and the intake at the bottom. These systems take a little more time to deploy and require additional training, but are much less expensive because you don't need to excavate. These systems also eliminate most permitting and are better for water quality because you don't have to dig in the streams. It's just mounted on the side of the bridge. So you would take it off the cradle end, which is this far right end. There's a pivot right there. So you take it off, it cradles down into the water and you draft and go, just like a typical dry hydrant. The one you see on the left is one we put in Proctorsville a handful of years ago. That's one of the highest ones that Got Big Water has installed for us. And we put them on the downstream side of bridges, so they're protected from flooding and things like that. We're putting more and more of these in. They're cost effective and less digging and things like that in the river stock.
Great.
We have added a few components. I've put a braking carriage bolt at the bottom. We use Schedule 80 elbows and things. So we have adapted this concept to our cold environment up here with the potential for ice and things like that. So over the past 26 years, we funded nearly 1,200 projects in 235 out of the 255 towns, with 2.25 million in state funds and a little over 600,000 in federal U.S. Forest Service funds. We helped repair and replace 28 systems in 2012 due to Hurricane Irene damage, which opened the door for repair and replacement grants ever since Hurricane Irene came through. You'll see this similar maps in the report there. And of course, it seems that every 12 years, the world tries to wash Vermont away. Do y'all remember 1999, the flooding in 1999, just after I graduated college from VTC, and then 2011 with Hurricane Irene, and here we are, 2023. There's got to be a 2012 flood event for Vermont. There's got to be one. So let's see here. So that's that. Funding sources for our program comes from the Vermont Department of Public Safety via Division of Fire Safety through Mike's shop that's passed through. Vermont Forest Parks and Recreation, that's U.S. Forest Service money that we get through the VFA, which is from Volunteer Fire Assistance Grants. We get 35,000 in federal funds from them every year. Starting this year, we'll be getting 35. Historically, it's been 25,000. So what we do is we couple that money because the federal money comes 50-50 match. So what we do is we find the much more expensive projects and we use the 10 from state funds, 5 to 10 from the feds, and then there's the local match contribution as well. I could say we couple the money. That's how I kind of think of it. As we still the 25% local match, which is really the winning equation. 25% local match is a good fit for the fire service for them to be able to. It's either an in-kind or local funding.
Yeah, and the in-kind helps a lot.
Yeah, it does. Because they volunteer all the time. They're used to volunteering their time and things. So we take that in kind if you're dollar for dollar. So, and then Vermont appropriations, we ask Vermont communities to appropriate $200 a year towards the program, and that helps with the overhead because then it's general funds, right? Jill, is that the term, general? It helps to pay for Jill's time and other people that work on the program under the VACB. And we're requesting an increase of $70,000 per year. Jill, would you like to chime in on this?
Sure. Are you okay with me sitting like this, or do you want me to move over there? I'm just worried about sitting behind you.
It's better.
I can just sit here.
But you can also bring another chair
Yeah.
over.
I'm good like this. I thought that.
Actually, no, just actually. If you
Oh, okay.
and I can.
I'm the finance person. I help Troy manage the grants.
Because the people at home want to see you.
Okay, thank you. The program is roughly $250,000 a year. And we give grants, it really varies on the year based on the construction season. And during COVID, there was sort of a hiatus of construction. A couple of years after COVID, we spent $165,000 in sub grants. The grants vary from $3,000 to $15,000. The threes tend to be repairs, or under three tend to be repairs. And as Troy's already explained, that there's matching funds. The majority of funding comes from the Division of Fire Safety. We're asking for an increase because we've been level funded on personnel for like 20 years.
Mm.
And there's a line item in the budget that for the Rural Fire Protection Task Force that's been 55,000 for many, many years in the big building. And the capital budget, it has varied, and Mike will explain this a little bit. It's varied between 100,000, and then we actually had a surplus build up, so we actually invited me to cut it to 75, and now we're at 125,000 per year. So we asked for a $70,000 increase for basically for the engineering and personnel and incidental expense on the appropriations bill. We submitted that to the department. The department actually submitted that to the governor's budget, but the governor didn't approve it. So we're basically asking the capital bill up the difference because it's engineering. So it is an allowable capital expense. So that's why we're asking you unexpectedly for this increase.
Okay, so let's be clear about that, because what I have is H 494 as introduced, which I think is the most current,
Senator
but maybe
Harrison,
not.
for the record, Scott Moore, Joint
Yeah.
Fiscal Office. The as passed may have had some changes to the language.
Okay.
And it did just pass the House this morning.
Oh, okay, so I'm seeing the 125.
And
So
the
that
House,
was that increase?
the House committee recommendations were to keep the same as the GovRec, which was 125 a year, or a total of 250 across the 2 years.
But is that what you're asking for?
We're
That
asking
is-
for an increase.
Okay.
Yeah, we are asking for an increase.
So can we get some sort of documentation of that ask?
Sure.
Other than you just tell,
Sure,
I mean, I can write it on my,
Yeah, we can give you a budget for that and ask. Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
and you're asking for
An additional 70,000.
an additional
So
70,000.
to make that
each year,
basically
right?
125, which is like a full-time engineering position.
Okay.
That's what we're looking for. We do supplement the things like travel and a purchase of parts with the town appropriations, and we do take a little bit off the top of the capital bill and the federal funds for indirect in engineering, but it's really not enough. It's actually a program that's running in red. It has been for many years.
Mm.
I'm leaving. I'm trying to stabilize the program as I leave partly for our future operations. We inherited this program from another organization that folded, and the department basically asked us to take it on, and our board
Oh,
asked us to take it on.
so when did that happen? Is that recent?
Just about a dozen years ago,
Oh,
Resource Conservation Development Councils got federally cut in their funding, and then
Okay.
some of them, most of them closed their doors, and when that happened, a lot of the other programs were whittled away to V-Trans and stuff, and the DACD gladly took over the program because it met their mission statement.
No, and it's a really important program, and I believe each of, or the individual grants they provide to municipalities are mostly pretty small.
They're very small, and they do a lot of work, and they have to fill out an application. Troy goes and assesses out the proposed sites, might propose an alternative site. Based on the GIS work and soils and all that. We've learned a lot because we work, the conservation districts work in the water quality world, so we're now even more sensitized to the issues of digging around in streams and the fact that streams move. So Troy sends me grants. Troy now manages, he's a one-man show. I review the grant agreements and then make sure the numbers add up, basically. But we give the town or fire department a sub-grant agreement for the activity. They submit a very, complicated reimbursement request. Troy makes another visit to verify that they've done a flow test and that the system's working before we make a payment.
Okay, so because you're asking for more than the House put in, we'll just need some more information. So
Okay.
I'm just thinking about things like, similar to what Senator Major was asking, if you have a sense of how much of the state has been protected by these so far. So are you 75%, 80%, 50%? Along in what it would take to
How much further do we have to
Provide-
go to protect the whole state of?
Yeah.
Well, there will always be a need. It'll never really go away because as things develop, more homes, things like that, there will always be a need for more hydrants. I don't think we'll ever reach a point of saturation.
Well, how about we assume, and assuming it's challenging, but the development review process could include and should include and does include in some cases, fire protection. So for now, you can assume that new development would come with or at least pay for dry hydrants, if dry hydrants were the way that something was gonna be protected. So I think it would be really valuable to have an idea of how long, how far away we are from protecting the property that we have now. Because and you don't have to give me an answer right now, or doesn't it, but just think on that, because that's important to make this case.
Maybe a little bit of assessment of where the gaps are. Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because they do have a usable life. We are sometimes replacing ones that were built in the.
Right, we're finding that the lifespan of a typical dry hydrant is, 15, 20 years, and then then you might need an upgrade, or you may need to, replace the riser or the intake and things like that. That's a lot of things that has come from this program. Do you have a question? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would suspect that, particularly this year, that your materials for repair as well as the new building have gone up.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, I just had a communication with the guy from Alabama, and his extrusions, which is the metal, the aluminum that he uses for his heads, have gone up like $90 each.
Yeah.
So, and that is a 33% increase just on his materials. He told me in the next couple of weeks, the price of a 6-inch hydrant head is going to go up almost $100 each. Yes.
So, my suggestion would be to say how much that increase is going to be, and keep that back on.
That's true. And over the years, we've been implementing more and more complex systems, right? We did the easy ones in the early years. So there's a lot more of these pond-fed systems. The task force capped at 15,000. We've sometimes gone to 20, just in an effort to spread the money around. So the cost share on those large projects from the towns ends up being 50% profit. It's not just 25%. Sometimes it's 100%. Because you can see those are, if they get a pond, it's very expensive excavation.
And I've been here since minute one, actually. Excuse me, I did this job as a work study student at VTC. So originally, when the program started, we gave $1,000 grants, $1,000. It quickly went up to $2,500. And then we rode the $2,500 train for about a decade. And then it steadily has gone up after that. And we've capped the state funds at 10,000 with the federal funds, it's a good fit. I don't think we're ever going to really go above that, but just so you know, it has gone up over the years.
That makes sense.
And I will say this as well. This morning we're dealing with it in agriculture as well. Our funding right now for our entire budget, we just don't know how much we're going to get. Our budget for the entire state is $9 billion, and $3 billion of that is federal. So even for us, it is difficult to manage that. So while I appreciate the increase in the ask, it may be, to full disclosure, difficult. But we will do the best that we can.
Thank you. I just had this word.
Oh, yes. So it's the Association of Conservation Districts that manages this program. So we have some statewide programs. All the conservation districts are members. I believe you've all heard from them. That we also have an ask in for general fund appropriations requests for the conservation districts, which are entirely grant funded.
And they do a lot of good work.
Looking for more stability. So it's not a specific request for this me, but it's a request from all of you to support that request as well.
Okay,
And this is the new director coming in is Michelle Monroe. Some of you may know Michelle. She was, which office I forget. She worked for
Senator Wells.
Senator Wells' office. She kind of.
You may have met her actually, because she worked in emergency and flood relief as well as agriculture. So she's been around really doing amazing work.
My contact information.
yeah, dry hydrant guy, that's,
Well, I used to have a troy.dare@usda.gov email address, and then I wasn't a federal employee, so I had to get off of that system. And like, well, what are you gonna use for an email? And by then, I was already known as the dry hydrant guy. So,
that's fun.
yes, it is fun. And it's easy to remember.
You could say VT, although Troy's starting to get work in New England, around New
I'm
England.
trying to, yeah, I actually was trying to get a program started, and I'm originally from Maine, and looking to the future, I have a young daughter, and I'll just my own personal, my personal career, I'm trying to get other programs started. But this has always been my baby ever since I've been here since day one. I graduated VTC at 23 years old, and I'm going to be 50 next month.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service.
Yes, and I must say that it has become a very big part of my life. It's very much who I am. I take great pride in helping the Vermont Fire Service. It is got a lot of dear friends I've made over the years that are on the fire departments, and I'm starting to work with people who weren't even born yet when I started this job. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Or seeing the children of the people you
Grandchildren of fire chiefs I started.
Come out of
with.
you, Mayor.
Definitely not me. I'm deep into AARP.
It is an honor, it is a privilege, and I look forward to doing this program until it sunsets someday.
All right, well, hopefully it won't sunset, or it might get a little bit smaller
Well-
when you just start
However.
replacing. Yeah, but we will have you back in, because you, just so that you can give us some more information on the ask and on the details of the ask.
Okay.
Because we'll have to justify that to folks.
Okay, thank you.
No
So
problem.
as much detail as you can provide. So, you know how many hydrants you've put in.
Yes.
And then you can just maybe estimate the amount that are necessary for the whole state and tell us where you are. And that the price of the materials has increased, which is
I
certainly.
expect plastic to go up. The PVC has been steadily going up since COVID. Now because of everything that's going on, it's probably going to go up some more. Now, keep in mind too, that we repair and replacement, we've spent so many years building this infrastructure, and now we repair and replace them, but wants to keep those systems.
Right. And so at some point, you wouldn't necessarily need to do this now, but it would be good to have a schedule for, what, every 10 years we do a certain amount, or maybe a 10-year cycle, so that we do a 10th of the dry hydrants each year, that kind of thing. And then if there's any, do you have any information on, like insurance rates being less, because of the dry hydrants, just to show the benefits of the dry hydrant?
Sure.
That would be good.
Well, and it actually, my understanding from my experience is that it really depends on the insurance company and the ISO rating for the town. Insurance companies can usually take or leave the ISO rating. And the ISO rating is based on many things. 50% the department capability, training and things like that. 40% is water supply, where we come in. And then the other 10% is how you take and respond to calls. So just plugging in a dry hydrant or a handful of hydrants doesn't necessarily lower the ISO rating, because there's a lot more to it than that, but it does help. And also NFPA has now added the availability study, kind of getting in the weeds here a little bit, but the ISO
What's
rating,
NFPA?
it's actually National Fire Protection Association.
Correct.
I was an agency or association. I tended to be there, but so NFPA is where ISO takes a lot of its standards from. So now an availability study is something that I'm qualified to do for towns. Availability study is just studying the water body, the hydrant system itself, and things like that, to give them that documentation for the facility so that it can help reduce the ISO rating. Like I said, it's a complicated topic, the insurance thing. But it can help the insurance rating, putting in hydrants as long as they're certified under the availability study. There's a little more, there's some expense to that and things like that, but it
Okay.
can help
Well,
the fire insurance premium.
any benefit, I mean, it's obvious that it's a benefit, right? I mean, fire safety, we all care about.
Yes, there is a benefit to having hydrants in place and certified.
Considering Ingalls might know.
So I think increasing the number of projects we're able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, at this point, with the 125 and then the 35 from the feds, it's a smaller number of projects. We're able to do it as we're charging engineering time of those projects as well. We didn't used to do before when 55,000 was enough.
There's a lot more permitting assistance that's necessary. As these systems get more complicated, they're tapping into more managed or governed water bodies where you need help with permitting, wetlands and things like that. Vermont A&R has a lot of permitting requirements for these. When you get into big rivers and streams, navigable waters, you get anywhere near Lake Champlain or any of the other major lakes and things, there's a lot more permitting assistance needed for the fire departments.
Do you know if the processes that we use to approve new development include these types of protection systems?
Have you
Ever
actually
seen hydrants paid for by a constructed new?
Yes, Act 250, right, Mike, and whenever an Act 250, most of the time requires a fire department sign off, and they will
Right.
ask for, okay, you're gonna build all you're gonna develop all these structures. You need to give us something to help with fire protection, because it's a very big burden on the fire department if they don't have water. And that results usually in cisterns and tanks, which can be kind of undersized, in my opinion. It'd be better to build a fire pond and put a hydrant in it, so because you have actually a lot more water available that way.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a dimension to developing where those developers are required to put in something for fire protection.
Okay, good.
It's already in effect.
Good. Good, it should be.
And a lot of them come to us for, funding for. those-
They're so used to this program. Troy goes to the fire warden meetings. He sends an email to all municipalities every year. That used to be mailing, now it's an email with a link to the application. And,
Great. Okay.
Michael, we should give you a chance to say
Yeah,
something.
Mike, well, Mike.
Well, sit here.
I'm speechless. Thank you. I'm Mike Nerocher, the Executive Director for the Division of Fire Safety, and I don't know how many years I've been in front of here, but I would like to thank Jill for the many years that you've been here. You've been a great partner. And so these two do a great job with the program. I'd just like to reflect back when we did come into the committee and actually reduce our capital request because we weren't spending that particular fund down. And so in an effort to be transparent, we came in here and we actually asked for only 75,000 each year for those 2 years. So 150,000, we shaved 100,000 off.
So you were the one that asked for less.
We initiated, they were like, it's done.
Yeah. I
When
mean,
was
we
that?
actually did. We actually, as
Yeah.
partners here, we requested that reduction. So you all know this is important for the rural firefighting community. So respect the wishes of them providing more information. There's a lot of data out here in this profession here. So I just want to thank you for letting us come in and have Troy and Jill do their program here and educate folks to the importance of having these systems.
That's another benefit of the program is I actually help educate the fire service on
Yeah.
how to do the fires. And a lot over the years, it's, some that are new to the concept, but some that have been working for years, I roll out, they know what they want to do because we worked together for so many years and, I just approved their design, we help pay for it and things like that. So we've helped to educate the fire service, which I've learned more from working with the fire service than I ever did in college. I've learned more from working with the fire people, and I take all their great ideas and I put them in my pocket and I share those with the rest of the state.
That's great. Well, there's nothing like actually doing it too. And each situation, I'm sure, has its own challenges.
Yeah.
Just, all right. Well, that's great.
Well,
Well, thank you. Thank you all for
Thank
your
you.
service.
Any other questions by anybody?
All good.
Or I, yes?
I see you guys at Ashton's good side here.
Oh, that's the one up in,
Newport Center.
Newport Center, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We just helped with that new fire pond they just installed near the village, which helped to, replace their hydrant system, which is, and a couple of the dry hydrants.
No,
But
it's
we,
very
that was-
helpful problem.
yeah, that was a scenario where we put two hydrants in that same pond to meet their needed fire flow. That's the exact example of two hydrants in one big pond.
So that must be a big pond.
And actually, if we go back to the beginning, this is that pond right here on the left. Oh, hold on. Which it caught up. That's them doing their flow test on their two hydrants
Yep.
with a rainbow and everything right there and the Q Lung Lake.
And
young lady and
then,
the- Yeah, so that's a Newport Center picture too.
cool.
I asked him whether he photoshopped that and he said no.
Yeah, yeah, that is a great photo.
gold there. Someone got through.
What do you mean? There she is right there.
Oh,
There's the yellow right there. And recruitment and retention is always been a problem with the fire service and pictures like this and experiences like that. She might be on the fire department someday.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
We like
sure. Think long term.
Yeah.
I'd love if those two guys joined the fire department.
I know.
They always need to recruit.
Spending money.
We gave you reports, take your business motivation.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so.
Yes, and then there is the full version.
Oh,
on
okay,
the, it's on the webpage.
okay, perfect, thank you. So. Now we're gonna talk about. H50 just a little bit. Which is, if you remember, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The House sent this over and what they would like the BGS folks to do is to provide additional information on their Facebook, and I hadn't seen this Facebook. So this is just a few pages of the Facebook so that you can see what it looks like. And has these different categories of properties. And so they would like more detail. And when I was looking at it, if you look at the last couple of pages where it has the properties, this one is courthouses, I think, office buildings. Don't think there isn't any dollar amount on these.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at this Facebook yet.
This is actually the first time I thought it had something to do with, the Elon Musk. That's why I'm away from it.
Oh, that's funny.
No, seriously though, I looking at, Windsor, and I'm looking over, I'm sorry,
Oh, okay.
on, state home rentable. So I know that the president, and I know I've got my, as far as this, but when they say rentable, what exactly do they mean by that?
I was wondering about that. I think it means what they rent, but we obviously don't
Yeah.
know, and so we should ask them.
Okay,
So the reason I'm bringing this up is, I wanted to get the committee's thoughts on, having someone back, to talk to us about H50, because I feel like we didn't have as much conversation as we could. Yes.
They have.
we have to,
definitely.
look at you. Look at, actually reading it
Reading
from the
the
front.
whole back.
Actually,
Okay, so yeah, so rentable is usable plus share of common space. But I didn't know if it could mean that they could sublease it.
yeah, I would want to have it to happen back to, because I'm not sure the prison is actually rented. Guess you can.
Right. It is helpful. And buildable area, because the state, I believe, has, and you might know this, Senator Ingles, I think the state does have buildings that we rent to others.
Yes.
So, seeing if we are the renter or the rentee, I think would make sense too on this. All right, so I have some questions, y'all have questions, so we'll have that back.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
Okay,
Because when you also, you talk about money. And since we're talking square footage in Burlington is different than square footage in Hyde Park. I mean, we talk about real estate guys, so. So,
Yeah.
So that money is going to be different. So this is, let's have, because I'd like to understand this a great deal more.
okay. Good. Okay, that's all I needed on that one. Thank you. So, Scott is here. And does anyone have any questions for Scott on the capital budget? We have received now the budget from, oh no, we haven't received the final one from the House.
No, the
That
House,
happened now.
they passed this morning, third reading. Just to give you an update, second reading, there were no questions. There was no nays, so it was all unanimous, basically, as far as I could tell. Third reading, there was no amendments, no one had any questions. Voice, all ayes. So I imagine it will go through the process and you'll actually get it tomorrow, maybe. Okay. I'm not sure when it'll get in the Senate floor to be assigned to you, but I imagine tomorrow. So.
Okay, and it's essentially, it will likely be this.
Yeah, so John Gray and I will be here on Thursday to walk through the bill. And the spreadsheet is, I put it in order of the sections of the bill. Now, the language of the bill does have some additional elements to it that aren't on the spreadsheet. Various instances of policy language, if you will. But in general, the spreadsheet matches the bill. We can walk through it all on Thursday. But if you have any quick thoughts that you're like, hey, what's up here? I'm happy to try to answer now, or we can Thursday when we actually have the official bill language. That might answer some questions that I can't answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Where did my $5 to $7 million worth of cash go, Scott?
I do not think it's a very good problem.
Okay, we're missing missing a lot of cash out of this bill.
Would you like?
Well, it's all through there. I went through it this weekend because I'm pretty familiar with the way it goes, but when we go through it, I will be sure.
Oh, you're talking about in general.
Yeah, because this cash fund that's supposed to kind of stay in this bill, and I think it's probably sitting in House Appropriations right now.
Madam Chair, would you like me to come sit at the table?
Sure, yes, please.
And I can point out to you what Senator Ingles is kind of referencing,
Mm-hmm.
just so you can see it easier on the spreadsheet.
We need $1 million of that to put in some Wi-Fi.
I think they found another source for the
Okay,
Wi-Fi.
well,
We'll talk about that.
For something else. Okay, well, we got that one solved, Senator Major. We need another $1 million.
And Kayla, I'm happy to send you a copy of the spreadsheet so you can post it. My apologies for not doing that earlier today. But if you guys remember last week, we got off the top of the spreadsheet.
Mhm.
So if you turn to the last page.
This page.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
At the bottom of the section, section 18, then the subtotal and the grand total. So the way I'm trying to think how much to get into before we get into it again on Thursday, but section 18 outlines how much bonding capacity that the capital bill will be able to do. So essentially, the GovRec was 50 million for each of the 2 fiscal years. There's also $6 million in a bond premium, which you can see on line 164. Thank you, Senator Harrison.
You guys remember what that is, right? Bond premium?
So that gives us up to 100. almost $107 million in bonding capacity. Then we look at some of the reallocations that happened across the bonding capacity and cash the House had put in. The House also had found some other monies or programs that weren't being fully used, such as Fred mentioned earlier. If a program had money that we're not going to use from last year, we could reduce their money from this year, et cetera. So doing that, there's another $5 million in bonding found, which is on line 158. My budget's 160, looks like it's probably allocation. So $5 million in bonding, the 1.7 million more in cash that was freed up because the program didn't happen, or the House committee felt that they had money from last year's or years previous that we could use. So grand total, when it's all said and done, we're looking at a total of $123 million in the bucket that can be played with and used. So we get to the $7 million that Senator Ingles is referring to. We see the subtotal cash fund sources here on that section there. In column C, the annual general fund transfer of $14 million, $14.8 million. If you recall reading some of the cash fund language, there's a stipulation that up to 4% of the revenues would be transferred to the cash fund. But up to 4% is that $14.8 million.
Up to 4%.
Yes.
Okay.
Then the next slide on that is the fiscal year fund interest from last year with another $800,000. I'm still just in column C. And then therefore the fiscal year fund balance from the year prior was 1.2 million. And that was some money leftovers from the cash fund from last year. So our altogether is $16 million, almost $17 million in cash from the GovRec. Well, then if you look over at column H, you'll see that that 14.8 million is now 7.5 million, and therefore the 16.9 million is 9.6 million. So that's what Senator Ingles is referring to
Okay.
by missing 7 million. Essentially what the House committee did was based upon requests on the capital bill to fund the things and appropriations. The House committee had freed up some cash by shifting some things around, having the extra reallocations, moving some things from cash to bonded, et cetera. And in the end, they said, hey, we have $7 million that we're not going to need. So therefore, don't send us $14.8 million in the general fund, only send us $7.5 million. And that's that $7 million. Now, and all, one of the points of this was, one of the programs was in the GovRec, were some housing projects in Brattleboro, Berry, and Bennington. And the House felt that those three programs would be better served if the money was just given to ACCD instead of being in the capital bill. So part of the $7 million transfer out, there was a stipulation that $2 million of that would be earmarked, if you will, for an allocation for ACCD, which is in the actual big budget. You'll see it line item for $2 million for that. So $2 million of the 7, they gave to appropriations with the caveat that they would use $2 million for the housing projects.
So Jane Kishel would say to me, you've been robbed.
I do the math, but I didn't want
I just work here.
the big bill, where would we find that? Once you get into the one-time appropriations, I would have to pull up the actual section. I think it's sections something. I'll have to find an actual citation for your Senator Plummer. My apologies for having that up in there.
For not having something.
If you hadn't prepared for it.
So that's in the appropriation bill.
It's an appropriation.
Yeah.
So they have one-time appropriations and they'll say, and even the cash that's in this bill, the capital bill itself has a citation for the intent of what we want to use for, but appropriations actually appropriates the money. So all the different cash transactions that are here for different projects in cash. The capital bill, the big budget bill will actually list appropriation for each of these, and there's like 8 or so projects that are funded by cash.
That'd be helpful to see the appropriations bill here at the same time we're looking at this.
So other questions or anything I can try to answer a quick preview of?
I'm sure there will be.
Many,
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to this.
Yeah.
and then Alice, Chair Emmons will be here on Friday.
Oh,
And she can speak to more of the committee's intent and everything else. So anything that I have to get. I could definitely tell you what transpired on the spreadsheet in the room, but some of their intent, I don't want to speak on their behalf because I don't want to misconstrue what they were saying.
okay.
Okay. It's good. Anything else? Okay,
And it's my plan to, now that the House has passed the bill, to be with you all whenever you do capital bill stuff.
Yeah.
Senator Harrison, I already mentioned you've taken some testimony, and so I'll be here for others and be in the room, so we need to make changes. Just so you guys understand how the spreadsheet will work. Senator Inglis and Senator Harrison are familiar with this from last year. My goal is to take this spreadsheet and add another 5 columns. And then there will be a green, because the Senate has a green color, is the traditional. And then we'll have the Gov rec, the House rec, and the Senate rec. They'll be all on one spreadsheet. So we might have more pages, so I'm gonna shrink the columns, but make the rows bigger. Try to make.
so that we can read them.
So you can read them.
Yeah,
So
So
we
in other
appreciate
words,
that.
you're an expert in Excel.
if you try it, so it's a problem.